For me, I guess after further reflection, I do believe that it would be when like the biggest name comes off the board, then everyone can exhale because yeah. And like you, I am very very intrigued about one Mr. Jason Robinson and seeing if he's gonna, re-up with Dallas or join his brother in Pittsburgh. That's very exciting for me.
It's exciting too. I mean, I don't know. Robertson, he's the kind of guy like he definitely has the goal scoring talent. He's definitely someone who can get you at least 30 a season, maybe 40, 50 if he's on a tear. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like he's much more than a... Like, I don't see a point in his career, unless it's, like, much further down the line, he proves us all wrong, that he's captain material. Like, he's a scorer. Like, he's not a brush-your-face type of guy. He's not a punches you into the boards type of guy. He is a goal scorer, pure and pure. And, when you're playing hockey and your objective is to score goals, that helps.
100%, man. And yeah, I know that he's definitely not going to be captain material, but yeah, I mean, if we are able to, and I use the we as in like you and I are like, controlling the Pittsburgh Penguins because that's how sports fandom works. But yeah, if we as a collective, like as the Pittsburgh Penguins, are able to land Jason Robinson, it's going to give us one last shot at Lord Stanley in terms of like this current like configuration of the Penguins. Otherwise, man, we're just going to be looking back on glory days.
Yes, we will. And we have 5, and Philly hasn't had one since 75, so that works.
And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on all sides of planet Earth. And the way that we measure that distinction is we travel to Ukraine and we go all the way to Uganda in the search of a music podcast that is better than ours. But we take the long way around because we know geography. This podcast is called Hey, Listen to This. And it is indeed hosted by two dashingly good-looking men who share the same middle name. I'm the one. I'm the only. I'm the one who has been told for most of his life, try to see the other side, by people who have never tried to see the other side. Ryan James Kearns.
And I am the one, the only, the... It really doesn't matter what side you're on as long as you're standing in a hall full of mirrors, Matthew James Durzik. And for those of you who are wondering what it is that we do here on Hey, Listen to This, if this is your first time, first of all, welcome. Second of all, what we do here is we talk about music. We talk about music albums. And the way we choose the albums that we talk about is we either go through our own personal collection or perhaps look at the Billboard charts, see what's trending, what's hot, or we look at the month and decide that there's a certain topic we need to discuss. And we pick an album. We come together to discuss it after listening to it, of course. Track by track, line by line, note by note. We pick out the lines, notes, and songs we like, what we don't like, what we thought could have been improved upon, what we thought stood out. And at the end of every episode, we give the album a rating out of 10. And we recommend an album based on the one we just talked about. And we choose another album for the cycle to repeat next episode. But before we get into what the next episode is, we must start this episode. And the way we start this episode is we talk about last episode. Ryan, what did we talk about last episode here on Hey, Listen to This?
On last week's episode of Hey, Listen to This, we finished up our celebration of Pride Month of 2026 by talking about The Wailer by the band Home Is Where. Very happy that we did that record. I've always been a fan of the group, but I never actually really sat down and like digested an album proper. I don't even own one of their records on vinyl. I might pick up the Wailer though if I see it in the shop, but I don't think I'm gonna actively seek it out. But yeah, very happy about utilizing that album as a a cap off for our celebration of Pride Month of 2026. So how are you feeling about walking away from the Wailer by Home Is Where? Are you in alignment, or are you still just trying to figure out what is the Wailer?
Honestly, I'm pretty much right in solidarity with you on that one. I'm very glad we did that to wrap things up for Pride Month, because not only do we appreciate giving artists from the LGBTQ plus community a voice and a chance to be spotlighted, but also definitely one of the more unique bands that we have covered here on this show, and definitely a wild ride of different sounds and lyrics, especially the lyrics that we've talked about throughout our history. It's definitely one for your ears, and for those who want to listen to The Wailer, I think both me and Ryan recommend it. How much so? Well, for that, you're going to have to listen to the episode we did last week, which you can either do at the end of this one, or right now, if you're feeling frisky. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're not the police. We're not like that. But in any case, our episode is up for you to listen to and judge for yourself on our thoughts on The Wailer by Home Is Where.
That being said, Matthew, we've officially talked about last week's episode, so we checked that box. So the next box that we have to check is, what do we talk about on this week's episode of Hey, Listen to This? I bet you, I'm feeling that it's somebody who, in my opinion, sings really, really well. But yeah, why don't you tell the dear listener out there, who are we talking about on this week's episode?
So for this week's episode of Hey, Listen to This, if you have a second to look at your calendar, dear listener, you'll realize it is July 4th, 2026, and that means it is the 250th anniversary of these United States of America from when it was first born, or I guess signed in free agency. Hey, look at that. But yeah, it was 250 years ago that America decided to become America instead of being under British rule. And there's been a lot of celebrations going on with fireworks and food and heaven knows what else. So why not pick something rather patriotic for this July 4th, 2026 review? And what better way to talk about the USA than to talk about a man who was born in the USA? That's right. We are talking about the one, the only, the boss, Bruce Springsteen and his E Street Band and their 1984 release, Born in the USA. Now, before we get to the meat of the episode and discuss this album proper, some of you might be wondering, who is a Bruce Springsteen? And a bit of a loaded question, but I will give you the Cliff Notes version because, fun fact, we've already talked about this band once before on the show, and I will talk about that in a brief second, but we'll start back at the beginning. Bruce Springsteen was born in Freehold, New Jersey, and grew up listening to the rock and roll stylings of the Beatles and the Four Seasons, decided to become a rock and roller himself, and joined a band called the Castiles when he was in his teenage years. By the time he was in his 20s and he was on his own as a solo artist, he eventually picked up enough steam to release his own record back in 1973 entitled Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey. Bit of a critical darling, but not really a super big seller by any means. His next album, though, was the big seller, his breakthrough album Born to Run from 1975, featuring himself in the sounds of the aforementioned E Street Band. That is an album that we have talked about here on Hey, Listen to This, and it still to this day remains one of the biggest disagreements we have ever had on the show, at least from a numerical perspective. I'm not going to spoil what our ratings were, but I will tell you that the numeric difference was 3. There was a 3-point difference between Ryan's final grade and my final grade for Born to Run. So check out that episode if you want to hear some rather dissident talk in a civil format, because we remained civil for that episode. So after Born to Run, Springsteen gets a little darker and releases his next album 3 years later with Darkness on the Edge of Town. And it was another critical darling, sold pretty well, but not quite to the level of Born to Run. Then he finally gets a top 5 single in 1980 off his next album, which is The River. And during that time, the single Hungry Heart climbs into the top 5. The album itself sells a little bit better than Darkness on the Edge of Town. And all of a sudden, Bruce is on top of the world. But there were a few elements to that album and a few elements to the world around him that left Bruce in a bit of a state. So this is where I must reference a movie that came out last year, 2025, entitled Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, which pretty much chronicles what I'm about to talk about next. Great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it. But in that movie, it is revealed that Bruce Springsteen, after about a year or so of touring for The River, this double album that released this big singles and all of a sudden makes him a superstar once again, he's starting to have a little bit of a struggle, and he needs to completely reset. So, reset he does in Colts Neck, New Jersey, where he decides to read books, watch TV, and experiment with making his own music. And what that ultimately led to was 1982's Nebraska, a complete about-face where the only instruments on there are Bruce Springsteen's guitar, Bruce Springsteen's glockenspiel, and Bruce Springsteen himself. It is a very stripped-down record, and it was made with very primitive recording technology that gives it a very unique sound. It's one of the first examples of DIY rock in the post-British invasion age, post-disco age, I would even say. So very, very way out there. A critical darling, but it wasn't necessarily the big, shiny thing that Bruce Springsteen fans have come to expect. Now, there were some songs around that time that he was writing that would eventually make its way onto the next album, which would be 1984's Born in the U.S.A. And as is revealed in the movie, some of these songs were recorded even as early as 1982. So some of these songs were done and finished for roughly a year and change before ever being put out on disc. But for Born in the USA, he takes some of the inspirations he was culminating from Nebraska, like the murderer Charlie Starkweather, living in New Jersey, being near his hometown, and trying to grasp everything that was around him, the rise of his stardom, the politics of the day, because for those who don't know, that was during Reagan's first term that all of that happened. And Bruce Springsteen, not a fan of Ronald Reagan, and who could blame him? But in any case, the reality is that Bruce became a bit more political. He became a bit more self-aware. Spoiler for those who haven't watched the movie or read the book, he went to therapy, and throughout all of that, he managed to relieve himself of whatever introspective demons he had within him, and was able to gather the band back together for an electric set of songs that would turn into Born in the USA, released in 1984. And it is one of the few albums, and one of only 3 before Billboard went nuts in the last several years, that managed to spawn 7 top 10 singles, which tied with Thriller and Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814 stood as a record for decades. And why was that? Well, people liked Bruce's sound. They liked how a lot of the things going on were resonating with their ears. And it also didn't hurt that he released this in 1984, the year that, similar to 2026 when America's hosting the World Cup, America hosted the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, California. And between that and the rise of Reagan republicanism, all of a sudden, being American was just the greatest gosh darn thing that ever happened to the world. And so they see this guy on the cover singing Born in the USA at the top of his guts, and like, you know what? We're born in the USA. We like this song. Now, were they right to do that? We will discuss in a few minutes. But nonetheless, this album made Bruce into a household name for years and years and years to come, to the point where he is still carrying somewhat of a social and significant relevance today. I mean, hell, he released a song this year that, if not for YouTube divorcing itself from Billboard, probably would have entered the top 10 and possibly been his first ever #1 song with Streets of Minneapolis. But that's another discussion for another day. That is the details that have led up to Born in the USA. And before I give my thoughts on this album in particular, Ryan, going into this review, how are you feeling about taking another swing into the discography of the boss?
You know, I'm feeling. I was feeling optimistic, quite honestly, because I kind of told you behind the curtain that I was considering throwing the album Nebraska up for contention for us to review. So I was willing to give Bruce another shot here on Hey Listen to This, because I figured, I mean, when I hear Born in the USA on the radio, like, this might be a little bit of like a spoiler kind of territory here, like, the vocals aren't so bad. And other songs within Bruce's catalog, like even his later work, like off the album Radio Nowhere, an album that I spun when I was in high school, I still remember the vocals not being bad. But yeah, like, just for some reason, for the dear listener out there who isn't quite aware of what I'm trying to, like, reference here, I, like, when we did our Born to Run review, one of the things I kept getting tripped up on was the vocals from Bruce himself. I couldn't stand it. And yeah, but needless to say, I am approaching this review with open ears and open mind, and I'm willing to give Bruce another shot. So I'm going to flip it over to you, Matthew. Well, what are your thoughts, feelings about going into this review? Are you excited, or are you like maybe a little scared, or are you just like, what happens?
Can I choose option D, all of the above? Because I'm excited to talk about this album for sure. I wouldn't say I'm scared by any means. I'm maybe intrigued would be the better option, because, I mean, at the end of the day, these are our opinions, and certainly we have the right as red-blooded Americans to express these opinions. That's what this country was founded on, right? And I will say that, whatever it is. I mean, I can't stop you from feeling how you feel about Bruce Springsteen. I certainly couldn't the last time. But this is a very different album from Born to Run for many reasons that we're going to get into. But full disclosure, before we get into things proper, I have listened to this album quite a bit over my lifetime, so much so that, as Ryan can see and anybody on the Dark Feed can see, I have it on vinyl. And yeah, it's weird because I've never really, I mean, obviously the big songs off it, like Dancing in the Dark, Glory Days, I'll throw My Hometown in there, I'm on Fire. These are songs that became hits on classic rock and classic hits radio, so I sort of had those ingrained in me. But as far as a full album effort, it's been a few times I've listened to it, but more so in recent years I've decided to ramp that up because, in my opinion, there are some hidden gems across this album. But yeah, that's where I stand for. I also own this on CD. We're making one of the few releases I have on both, along with Al Green's Greatest Hits, and for some reason, Foreigner's 4. But in any case, I come into this with plenty of experience on Bruce Springsteen in general and this album in specific.
But do you own this album on Bandcamp? That's what I really want to know, man.
Bruce Springsteen on Bandcamp. I guess that's technically a possibility. I don't know why you would need to do that, because he's Bruce Springsteen and he probably has more money than Bandcamp, but that's aside the point. Yeah, in any case, no, I don't own this album on Bandcamp just yet.
Just yet. But if by some chance, Bruce, if you're listening to this episode of Hey, Listen to This, 1, holy shit. 2, you know what to do. You need to put all your music on Bandcamp, or even just this album exclusively, just so Matthew can now own your album a total of 3 times.
Yeah, and if nothing else, I could buy it on cassette, which could make it 3 already, or perhaps 4. You never know. Bruce, if you're listening.
The challenge has been thrown. But in the meantime, we have a challenge right in front of us here, dear Matthew. We must talk about the album Born in the U.S.A. by the man himself, Bruce Springsteen. And I just say we get this barbecue just going. And yeah, the opening track is, well, the title track, Born in the U.S.A. And Matthew, I'm going to have you kick us off here. I'm going to have you have the honors here.
Thank you, good sir. We do start with the title track, Born in the USA. And before we go any further, I know this is a Bruce Springsteen album. It says so on the cover, and it says so in the history books, but truly this is a Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band effort, and right from the opening note, you understand why. There are 3 men I would like to mention as I pull up the liner notes here. Roy Bittan on synthesizer and piano, Danny Federici on organ and glockenspiel and piano, particularly piano on Born in the USA, and also Max Weinberg on drums. These 3 members create an opening that is just a pure punch to the ear. Particularly how Bittan has the riff of ba 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 ba, while Weinberg is throwing that punch of a drum sound into the scene. It creates a very powerful, stately, and disciplined opening to the song. And then you get to Bruce Springsteen, who is pissed on this song. Like, he is singing his guts out. He is full of rage and fire on this song. And for those who don't know, this song is about being an American in the time of Vietnam, and how you end up going across the sea to kill an enemy that you weren't really planning on doing in your lifetime, and the sacrifices that come with that, whether it be men who are POWs overseas, or people coming back and dealing with the disrespect of Americans who don't like the war, or people who disagree with the war being told, hey, you know, son, if it were up to me, son, don't you understand? And Gone is the very singer with a capital S stylings that we heard on the likes of Born to Run, Thunder Road. I'll throw Badlands in there too. Like, this is just a man just shredding his vocals, not caring how he sounds, and yet somehow still sounding magnificent. Because despite how angry Bruce is on this track, his vocals are still very melodic, and the band backs him up at every single point. And you can talk about all the different lines there are in the song, particularly the one right before the last set of choruses where he's going, 10 years burning down the road, nowhere to run, nowhere to go, born in the USA, I'm a cool rockin' daddy in the USA. When he says he's a cool rockin' daddy, he is winking his face so hard and nudging his neck so hard that at the end of the day, his head is going to look like a garage door that a car crashed into. Like, he is very much being ironic on purpose here, and it works so, so well. But going back to what I said a few minutes ago, a lot of the people who bought this single because it did hit the top 10 did not hear it that way. All they heard was Bruce at the top of his lungs singing "Born in the USA," and they thought, hey, this is a song about how you're proud to be born in the USA. This is a song celebrating everything the USA has ever done. This is an American song. And it is an American song, but is that a good thing is up to the listeners at discretion, because it would surprise me if there were a lot of people who are less "I'm a cool rockin' daddy" and more "son, don't you understand" on this song. But the reason people think it's so powerful is because the band and Bruce are just so powerful sonically. Like, they could be reciting the lyrics to "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" and it would still sound like one of the best friggin' rock anthems of the 1980s, just on performance and precision alone. The drums sound great. The piano sounds great. The guitar sounds great. Everything about this track sounds great. And once you dive into the lyrics, you realize they're great too. And Bruce is delivering an all-time performance. So, for this review, I have a top 3. And it was hard, but I had to be honest with myself and say bottom nothing for this album. I'll explain why later. But we start with "Born in the USA" easily cracking the top 3. And so much so that, I gotta be honest, it's my favorite song on the album. It is an absolute tour de force, start to finish, and worthy of its historic prowess.
So, yeah, you were talking about like how everything on this track here sounds great. Like, everything is on point. Everything is just, delivering everything up to like the 10th degree. And for the most part, I would agree with you, man. Like, the one slight critique that I do have, that I want to just at least get right out of the gate, are the drums. Like, I don't hate how they sound, but they're very highly produced, almost to a comical sense. Like, you listen to it and you hear like the drummer smacking the shit out of that snare drum. I'm like, oh my god, like this is the inverse of Metallica's Saint Anger and the snare sound from that. Where, again, I want to stress, not a bad sound. And fun fact, that sound was completely improvised in the studio. The engineer, was able to get that sound by routing the snare microphone through a broken reverb plate and a noise gate. So, yeah, a little peek behind the curtain on the producer or the engineering soundboard there. But yeah, just also one thing I also want to get out of the way. Yes, Bruce sounds very good here. Like, when I turned this on for my detailed listening, I was just like, okay, yeah. This is the Bruce that I like. I like the angry Bruce. I like the Bruce where he's shredding his vocal cords, because you can really see that he's digging in passionately. And most importantly, he sounds on pitch, which is kind of an interesting statement to make, where he's just shredding into his vocals, but he's staying on pitch, because famously in the Born to Run single, in my opinion, he doesn't stay on pitch, but he's not shredding vocally. But I digress. That was that episode. This is this episode here. I am in agreement with you 100% about the band's presence here. I did make the comment about the drums being very highly produced, but everything as a complete package comes across so clean, so iconic. That lick that you discussed in your dissection about the track, like, it's just very, very good. Like, it's essentially doing the Lord's work with the track. Like, it's carrying the melody so well. The lyrics themselves, I always get a laugh when people are like, wait, wait. This ain't a pro America song? Like, well, I've been lied to all my life. There is no Santa Claus. What the hell, Deborah? But, yeah, just the overall progression of lyrics, though, like, they're great. Like, you already kind of talked about this, but this is basically talking about the Vietnam War and the American experience at the time, and like from verse to verse to verse to verse to verse, he's telling a complete story here, and like yeah, just an example of like the kind of lyrics that we're talking about here. One section I highlighted was got in a little hometown jam, so they put a rifle in my hand, sent me off to a foreign land to go and kill the yellow man. So, yeah, that's basically the American experience during the time. And the lyrical highlight that I had within Born in the USA was the one that you already kind of talked about, where it's the I'm 10 years burning down the road, that bar there. So, I very much appreciated that. I do have another slight minor critique about the song. The ending of the song could have been trimmed off just a wee bit. We were this close to greatness with this song, but no, like honestly, like it was just a minor critique. That being said, minor critiques aside, this song did pop into my top 3 in my side of the review here, and I have a top 3, and I also have a bottom 3 within this album review. And Born in the USA, the title track on this record here is my second favorite track off the record.
Very nice, very nice. I am slightly intrigued to find out what your number 1 is. I think I have a guess, or at least based on my theory and understanding of what this album is, I have a slight guess. But I will say, the ending does go on for a little bit. I do agree with you there. I don't mind it, obviously, because this is my favorite song on the album, but I do understand that they could have trimmed the fat maybe just a hair. Like, they just kind of let it roll and just beat that riff to death. I mean, they do have that nice little drum roll snare part with Weinberg, sort of like a 21 gun salute to American Hopes and Dreams. Did appreciate that a little bit, but yeah, overall, this song is just a great song, and I very much appreciate it for what it is. So, and one more fun fact about it: this was one of the earliest songs recorded for Born in the USA, because this was recorded in 1982 before Nebraska was even done and released. So, this was in the can for a while, but they just decided, hey, it sounds good as is, and we're just gonna roll with it. So. Next up on Born in the USA, track 2 is Cover Me, yet another top 10 hit. And Ryan, I will let you take the floor with this one.
So, with Cover Me here, Bruce actually, he wrote this song specifically for which disco queen, Matthew?
Disco queen, my immediate guess would be Donna Summer.
You are right, my dude. Congrats, man. Pat yourself on the back. You deserve some self-congratulations there. But, you know, after certain people heard the recording of the song, they realized it had hit potential. So they basically forced Bruce to keep the song for himself. And he ended up writing a different track for Donna Summer instead. And for those of you who are kind of curious about what that track is Protection. So, yeah, with Cover Me here, second track into the record, second time I'm running into Bruce's vocals, second time I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm liking what's happening here. Like, was Born to Run the problem? Like, maybe I just don't like that album, like, you know, as a listener and as like a somebody who zooms in on his vocals all the time, apparently. And like in preparation for this review here, man, I did actually re-listen to Born to Run, that whole album, and I am correct. Born to Run was the problem, because the vocals are still pretty rough on that record, to say it lightly. But with Cover Me, though, like, outside of the vocals, like, the whole track just flows pretty well. Like, it definitely, you can see the bones of a disco kind of song here, because it's very much just a groovy kind of track. The flow and the performances from the band are on point. The one thing that I did like specifically within the band's performance is the guitar work on the track is pretty solid. Like, you get the random flares that pop up within the track, and the solo here works pretty well. Doesn't really blow my socks off, but I do appreciate it for what it is. The section where you get the lyrics "wild wind blowing," you get the band doing like some sonic painting there, and I am always a fan of that. That always just, gets me going as a music listener. So, and especially within a track like this where it grooves, it keeps grooving and keeps grooving, you almost need like a little bit of a disruption, because otherwise it could just become like a deep cut off the record that is just an album track. But I think there's enough here that separates itself from that aspect. Also, I want to give a shout out to the bass player. They're doing a very solid job here as well. Really help grounding the song while being a little groovy, just having a little fun with their part. Lyrics overall are pretty solid. Honestly, if I had to be real with you, they kind of reminded me of "Shelter from the Storm" by Bob Dylan in terms of just like themes and everything, where, hey, it's a different kind of approach to this kind of aspect, but we get lyrics about how Bruce is declaring that this whole world is out there just trying to score. I've seen enough. I don't want to see any more. Cover me. Come on and cover me. While I'm looking for a lover who will come in and cover me. So, just trying to contend with the world and find somebody to find solace with. So, yeah, it was just a thing that popped into my brain, man. But honestly, with Cover Me, didn't pop into my top 3. But it's a deep cut off the record that I very much enjoy.
So, yeah, a lot of the thoughts you have about Cover Me, I share with you. I was not expecting you to compare it to "Shelter from the Storm," just because these two songs are so sonically different from one another. And you're right, they're probably very much about the same thing. But when Bob Dylan sings "Shelter from the Storm," he's very tender about it, and it very much sounds like he's trying to legitimately seek shelter. Whereas Bruce, it sounds like he's using solace as a metaphor for sex, possibly. And I think the reason I think that is just because how, like you said, groovy the track is. Like, it's a very danceable, very come on baby type of track, just from a musical standpoint. And I do agree with you that the guitar work is the standout part of this track. Bruce Springsteen and Steven Van Zandt make a great team on here. The solo, I exactly agree with that. Not mind-blowing, but it definitely gets the job done, which feels very appropriate for a Bruce Springsteen album. I did think that Bruce's singing got a little wild at times, not gonna lie. Like, it was never bad, but there were some times where he was just like screaming his guts out and just going more for emotion than tonality, which is a bit of a tightrope, but when it comes to rock and roll, it's a tightrope that the best can walk, and Bruce is one of the best, so he gets away with it. And yeah, it definitely is a lot more guitar driven. I can definitely hear the disco influence in there. And the lyrics I thought were pretty standard and pretty straightforward about, like you said, protection, solace. I want to say it almost reminds me a little bit of "Don't Worry Baby" by the Beach Boys, but once again, it sounds so different. It sounds so very strutty and macho that, again, it feels very much more of a literal sense of cover me, as in cover me with your body and let's have some fun. But whatever the case is, I dig this track quite a bit, but it did not land in my top 3. I'm going to put it in the great song bucket because it is a great song, and it's just a jam, man.
Indeed, man. And I feel like you're hair higher on the track than me. I stand by what I say though, like at least lyrically, thematically, I see what you're saying, where Bruce might be coming at it from more of a, hey, let's kind of like, I'm seeking like, companionship in a different way, but different strokes for different folks, I guess. But yeah, it's just an interesting track. And isn't this one of the singles off the record as well?
Yeah, this was one of the 7 that reached the top 10.
Yeah, I can see that. And yeah, it's just a fun track. And for those of you who have yet to hear Cover Me, like, go check it out. I mean, we're literally talking about right now. Not to give away the full review or anything like that, but we at least would recommend checking out Cover Me. But in any case, Matthew, I think it's time we pull up to the county fair here in Darlington and talk about the next track, which is Darlington County, man. The floor is yours.
Yes, Darlington County. This track is probably one of the deeper cuts off the album. Maybe not the deepest, but this was not released as a single, so this is officially an album track. Which, again, when you're 1 out of 5 on compared to 1 out of 7, it's pretty deep. But what I noticed right away is, once again, the guitar is leading the charge, and this guitar sounds very good. You get that nice little like clinking of I don't think it's quite a cowbell. If it is, it's a very small, very high pitched cowbell. It's almost more like a clanking of metal, like steel on steel. But in any case, it has that working man's vibe that they're going for. And then you get the full band coming in with the organ, the guitar, and the drums, and the bass. And it all just sounds very, very summery and very strong and very powerful. Like, guys are getting off the factory for a long weekend, and they are going to get in their car and go down to Darlington County, go cruising, enjoying the summer heat, trying to pick up chicks, guys being dudes. And that's pretty much what the song is. It's a song about guys being dudes. And it sounds like a song about guys being dudes because basically guys going into the county, into the city, wondering what's awaiting them. They see girls who are so young and pretty, as Bruce says. And I won't spoil it for you, but let's just say at the end of it, things don't necessarily go so well because the guys being dudes too close to the sun on this one. But in any case, it just sounds like a fun time, man. Like, it sounds like a song that you could definitely hear at a state fair or hear on your way down to the state fair or just hear during any type of like summer cookout. Like, this feels like a outdoor summer jam of a song. And again, the band is more or less the chief responsibility of that. And what's crazy is that the first few times I heard this, I felt I was listening to a John Cougar Mellencamp song, specifically Pink Houses, and that had been released the year before this. And part of me wonders, I mean, I don't know how cocky Bruce Springsteen is. Spoiler alert, he's kind of cocky. But wondering if this wasn't him trying to see, like, all right, I see you guys, you know, your John Cougars, your John Caffertys, your Michael Stanleys. I'm the king of Heartland Rock. Let me show y'all how it's done. And I feel like this track accomplishes that. Once again, I think Bruce does sing a little on the wild side, but again, whatever he lacks in tonality, he makes up for in earnestness and passion. So once again, he gets a pass from me. And yeah, this is just a fun track throughout, even when it gets to the chorus, quote unquote, of just la la la, la 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 la. Like, it's very much a, well, this is life, and we're just enjoying it, even if we're in a very unenjoyable situation, la 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 la. So yeah, I very much dig Darlington County, so much so that I'm willing to put it in cut track territory. It's not quite to the standard of the other three, but it's pretty close. Like, I'd say out of all the non-hits off this album, this is my favorite of the 5.
And I could dig that, man. And yeah, just approaching Darlington County here. Maybe this is the Bruce side of Bruce that I like, in terms of just the passionate, almost shouty vocals, because Yeah, we're 3 for 3, and I've yet to run across a Bruce track where I'm like, So yeah, just an interesting note. But yeah, a couple of other notes here. Like the song overall, like you said, grooves pretty well. Like I almost had to do a double take to be like, wait, is this the same kind of groove as Cover Me? Spoiler alert. It's not. It's a different kind of groove. But yeah, just the outside of just the grooves in general, like the melody in this song is just very, very strong. Like the guitar introduces it, and then the rest of the band expands upon it, and it just really like that kind of momentum, and then this track and that melody really lands well when Bruce's vocals come in because he's also mirroring that melody. So yeah, it was just I appreciated that songwriting technique and also the performances there. Like they were very strong. I agree with you that the chorus is pretty straightforward. It's so simple, but it works well given the context of Darlington County and what's being presented here through song. I also agree that the lyrics are the storytelling within the lyrics are pretty descriptive, and it's just a fun listen to. I'm always a fan of whenever we hear like a good story or just a story in general within lyrics. It always makes for a pretty good time. I didn't really that cowbell noise that I picked up in the track, and you said it wasn't quite a cowbell, it was just two, like, metal clanging up against each other, just metal clanging in general. Like, either way, it's a pretty awesome way to kind of kick off the track, especially considering the song's context. The sax solo was great, very much appreciated that, and even though while I don't have a lyrical highlight, in the bridge, like it really hits hard during the line, driving out of Darlington County, I've seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Like whenever I hit that, whenever I came across that in my detailed listening, I was just like, oh yeah, this that line and that part of the song slaps, man. But yeah, just overall with Darlington County, I think I'm gonna put it maybe a little above Cover Me, just because of the overall like lyric writing, the composition of the melody and how it expands out, and yeah, just the overall like fun time that you get within this track.
It is a fun time, and it's, again, I think I've remember reading Robert Kreisgau's review of this album, talking about how this song in particular felt like it was pinning down the matcha element of a weekend getaway. I'm paraphrasing here, and showcasing its futility while also not letting go of its exuberance. And he's right. That was a perfect way of putting it, because it's very much fun even when it's not fun. And that's pretty much what the whole oeuvre of the song is supposed to be. So I think Bruce and the band definitely nailed it on this one. Now, did they nail it on the next one? Well, it's time to discuss, because we are going from Darlington County to simply Working on the Highway. And Ryan, it is your turn to open up discussion.
So yeah, with Working on the Highway, we go from the county fair to like basically kind of like the sock hop in terms of like the sonic package and the songwriting here. Like Bruce doesn't sound bad vocally. He's a little bit on the weaker side here, but vocally, like, he's basically here. And the groove that is established by the band is very effective. The hand claps add a very fun element, and the lyrics are written well. Very much a hey, I'm getting off of work kind of song. And even the chorus is pretty solid. But one thing that just absolutely sunk the track's appeal here for me totally is this the little stingers that happen at the end of every phrase that Bruce sings. Like, it's just, he sings a bar, da 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 da, sings another bar, da 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 da, and I'm like, dude, you don't need that. Like, it's just, you could have done anything else. You could have expanded the sound. You could have had different guitar flares. Or, here's a fun thing. You didn't even really need to do anything. Like, you could have just had the bar, had the groove, had the bar, had the groove. But every single one of those singers, my dude, like, it was torture. It made the song a bit of a pain to get through. And I know, like, later on in the track, they change up the sound of those singers, but still, it's just as annoying. Like, when I came across this, and keep in mind, like, this is the 4th track in this record here, I was just like, oh, yeah, I'm really digging into this. I'm going to find out what Working on the Highway is all about. And for me, yeah, if this is what Working on the Highway is all about, don't sign me the fuck up for this. I don't want to have any part of this. This song sucks. Second least favorite track off the record.
Second least. Okay, so the least one's going to be a doozy. I can tell it from a mile away. I was curious what your bottom 3 was going to be for this album. I'm not 100% surprised that this landed there, though. More so because the one song that this does remind me of a little bit that we've talked about recently, in fact, we talked about a month ago in our first of our Pride Month reviews, was Hang On To Yourself from David Bowie. Also a bit of a rockabilly pastiche, and you were not a fan of that one, and you, as it turns out, you're not a fan of this one. As for me, though, I will say Bruce is singing a lot differently on this track. He's not even really sounding like Bruce Springsteen. He's very much going for the sock hop, rockabilly type vibe that you mentioned. And I will say that the stingers at the end of each line are a little too tongue-in-cheek. Like, they're very, hey, this is an upbeat song. Here's an upbeat piano part. And just like, okay, we get it. Cool. But that being said, I really do like how the keyboard sounds here. Particularly when it does the full-on repetition of those bars after the chorus. Because it just sounds, again, so much like a summertime thing. Like, if you were walking down a boardwalk in New Jersey, or Ocean City, or Atlantic City, no pun intended, you could very much hear a song like this being played over the loudspeakers as you're getting a snow cone or a hot dog, or, you know, putting your toes in the sand with your shirt still on because you don't want to go in the water. So yeah, it very much feels like that. It doesn't really sound like Working on the Highway, but again, this feels more like a one-character perspective, or a more inverted and introverted perspective of the same feelings that Darlington County has. Like, hey, you know, now that work's over, time to go party. And it's just in a different vein, a different light. I really like how this song sounds with both the acoustic guitar and the keyboard, and how it sounds almost like you're at a state fair or carnival. I will say Bruce's vocals seem more intent to follow rhythm than a concise story on this song. Like, he's not really trying to be as poetic as he is with Born U.S.A. or Darlington County or several others we're going to be talking about here. But for what it is, I think it's alright. I'm going to put it in the good song bucket. Like, this is not one of the, like, top tracks for me by any means, but when I'm listening to the album front to back, it's fine. It's good. I like it.
Agree to disagree, man. I appreciate your comparison to the David Bowie track that we covered at the beginning of Pride Month this year. Hang On To Yourself. I didn't catch that comparison, but within my own listen through. But props to you for kind of clocking that, and also clocking me maybe not liking this song for that. Maybe a similar reason, but yeah, just the stingers were too much, and I'm gonna hear them in my my sleep, man, in childhood nightmares. But that is that track. We must keep on this train here of this review, and we are going to be talking about the next track on the record, with the track being Downbound Train. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Thank you, good sir. Downbound Train takes this album back to the 1980s and back to a much more straightforward modern rock sound, because we get away from the Eddie Cochran rockabilly type stuff and we head more into a very dark beat. And I would say both the guitars and the synths here reflect that, because they definitely have a lot of dark, very modernish sounds in their color. It feels like a very dark song, and that's because this is a dark song, because unlike Darlington County, unlike Working on the Highway, this is a song about feeling like you're on a downbound train. You know, you have all these things in your life and none of them seem to be working for you, and all of a sudden it feels like you're just heading south, man, on that downbound train. And overall, I would say that the band does a good job here. Weinberg sounds good. The keyboard from Bataan once again sounds very good. I feel like the bottom, and they don't really get flashy, and that's one of the things I like about the E Street Band as a whole. Like, they don't really get flashy or very technical. They're more about feel, and they have more of a true live band feel to their sound. So whenever you hear those synth layers that have a few notes in there that's very minimal, it does come across very earnest, and it doesn't go for chops, it just goes for feel, which I appreciate. That being said, if there was one track on this album that I would label as my least favorite, it's probably this one. Because, in my honest opinion, Bruce's vocals on here, they're not bad, but they definitely approach occasional inscrutability to the point where it feels like you really cannot understand what he's trying to go for here. And as I mentioned, the band does a good job of having a minimal backing, but whenever the backing gets minimal like that, you have to come clear, and there's a lot of times where it feels like he doesn't do that. It feels like you have to like turn the volume up, or switch the channels on your equalizer to really get what he's saying. Because I will admit, the first time I listened to this on my vinyl record, it felt like he was mumbling, and I was just like, he sounded like Bruce Springsteen to people who don't like Bruce Springsteen. He had that very, it's like, dude, there are words behind that, right? But when it came to the main part of him singing, does it feel like you're on a downbound train? I at least understood that. So overall, I have to give this song a pass. I'm going to put in the album track bucket, but this is one that came close. It came damn close.
So, yeah, Bruce's vocals here, man, I agree with you. They're bad. Like, they're not good. And one could make the argument, though, with the vocal approach here, considering how dark the song is. He was really embodying the song, really in his feels about the song, and he was probably, not that I want to accuse him of this, maybe he was a little, like, alcoholic infused, or like just feeling his feels. I'll put it in that context there. That might explain away a little bit of the performance, but yeah, on my end, the vocals here just don't sound good at all. He's off pitch, and he's constantly like slurring his words together. So yeah. However, moving away from the vocals, though, the biggest thing that this song has going for it is the lyrics. Like, they tell a pretty bleak story of a man who is on, like, decline in his life, where he eventually hits rock bottom, and there isn't a swing back up. Like, it's just, you're on that downbound train, and it keeps going down, down, down. Little bit of a allusion to a later song, but yeah, it's just the lyrical highlight that I had within Downbound Train, though, was in verse 3, where he's talking about, in the moonlight our wedding house shone, I rushed through the yard, I burst through the front door, my heart pounding hard. Up the stairs I climbed. The room was dark. Our bed was empty. Then I heard the long whistle whine. And yeah, just when you really just sit with the lyrics that were being presented there, it's pretty haunting and depressing, and it's like they're executed pretty well. And the fact that this song, like, I didn't realize this until like after I sat down and, like, just heard the song all the way through. There isn't a chorus here, like a chorus proper. So yeah, it just amplifies the depressing feeling that you get in the track, because typically within choruses of tracks you get a place to have solace, a place to find like hope, or even just a place of like, okay, hey, this is home base. But no, it's just a constant decline. So yeah. And also I'm going to give a shout out to the band though within this track. Like, the band is doing a solid job providing a sonic backdrop to everything here. And even when things cut out during that third verse where the lyrics were what I highlighted, like, it's pretty good. However, despite all that, I will recap my opening statement here. Bruce's vocals don't sound good here, man. Like, it basically sunk the track's appeal to me. So much so, Matthew, we've once again hit a landmine in terms of my my enjoyment of the album here. That being said, Downbound Train is my third least favorite track off the record.
Okay, so the bottom of the barrel is still yet to be discovered, and I'm curious as to what that's going to be. I think I have a sinking suspicion of what that might be, but I'll leave my reservations for that. But yeah, it's a shame too, because if his vocals were a little clearer, like, this could have easily leapt into gray track or perhaps cut track territory for me, because the lyrics, like you say, are very stark, they're very introspective, they're depressing, and I will say that I don't know how much Bruce relies on any substances. I don't think he does, but in any case, he did go to therapy for having personal issues, and it wouldn't surprise me if this stemmed from that, as it was discussed in the movie. But yeah, it's a shame that his vocals are so stereotypically slurry that it does sink the track quite a bit. Not so much that I'm willing to put the big stamp on it, but close. It's close. So I say, without further ado, we close out side A of Born in the U.S.A. and talk about the third single in chronological order of songs on this album, and that is I'm on Fire. Ryan, it's your turn to close out side A.
So, not gonna lie, a little let down with this track, man. I thought this was supposed to be like one of the big songs off the album, which you already kind of alluded to. But for me, it's mainly an okay track at best. Like, it doesn't do anything to really offend me, but it's just like, if we lived in the alternative reality that this wasn't one of the big singles off the record, I would honestly feel like, oh, hey, yeah, this is just an album track. But that's just my maybe a little bit of a spicy take. I've known to dabble in the spice every once in a while here. But yeah, just going into the nuts and bolts about the track as a whole, though, I did appreciate the way that the finger picking part from the guitars alongside the driving drum beat with the backdrop of like a bare bones production make for a very lonesome feeling within I'm on Fire. Like, it's just very secluded, and honestly with this song coming after Downbound Train, like, yeah, it kind of seems like, at least on the narrative sonic through line, we have a through line here. So yeah, the like, on top of all this like lonesome feeling, you get synths coming in and adding chords, and I feel like that's a nice, like, great touch. I mean, you could have had the groove just establishing and doing what it was, but the fact that you're getting like chords being delivered, it does do enough to, like, just make the song pretty okay to listen to. Bruce, for the most part, speaking about being okay, like he sounds okay to decent. He does get a little sloppy at points in his execution, but nothing as bad as the previous track. So yeah, the lyrics as a whole, though, like they're pretty good. It's nice to hear. Shout out to the Gaslight Anthem here for this is the lyric. Just it's nice to hear that. Hear a lyric that the Gaslight Anthem lifted in this song here for their song High Lonesome. But my lyrical highlight here within I'm on Fire, sometimes it's like someone took a knife, baby, edge and dull, and cut a 6-inch valley through the middle of my skull. So like that's a pretty graphic and like pretty gruesome kind of bar there. So yeah, so also one other thing I want to just give a fun fact out with I'm on Fire. So that haunting synth line and the driving rhythm track basically just came together in a few takes with very little rehearsal. So as contrasted to like, the big overproduced, like, more than the U.S.A. and the back half, the side B singles that we will be talking about here in due time, like this basically came together almost instantly. So yeah, so I'm on fire. I'm not on fire with this track. It's not my least favorite track because I would be a little bit more spicy about it. However, it's an album track for me. It's fine.
So fun fact, I did not mention this in the intro, but a little secret that Ryan may have not known or forgotten. This is not the first time I actually reviewed this album. Way, way long ago, in the long-off year of 2014 or 15, I actually reviewed this as part of my short-lived Tumblr account where I did music reviews. And the reason I bring that up right now with I'm on Fire is this initially was my least favorite track on the record. And the reason I think I remember not liking it was because after the somewhat lyrical introspection of Downbound Train, Darlington County, and Working on the Highway, and pretty much just song after song of just Bruce putting it all out there, this is such a simplistic track, and it's basically Bruce being suave about trying to, fall in love or, fall in bed with somebody. And I thought it was kind of a put off, but years later, I appreciate the song a lot more than I did at the time. I'll start by saying that Bruce really doesn't sound a whole lot different than he did on Downbound Train. He does sound slightly clearer, which helps, but he's definitely got that same very I'm Bruce Springsteen type vocal that you expect from Bruce Springsteen. But it works here because, again, the song's a lot simpler and he's putting on a different face. Instead of being introspectively depressed, he's being pretty much just horny and or tired. And, in a rock and roll song, there are worse things to be, I guess. I really like the keyboards from Roy Bittan here and the synths. They sound fantastic. And I think the reason I like this song more is that after listening to Nebraska, this song from a sonic perspective makes a whole lot more sense because this very much feels like an old-timey, almost like a Mystery Train by Elvis type of song where he is just trying to be that old-school lover man from the 50s. And you do get those lyrics, like you mentioned, about the knife through the skull that do add that little bit of a dark flair to this track. But then you get the end where you get atop that finger pick guitar, Bruce going woo-woo, woo-woo. Sounds very similar to Atlantic City off of Nebraska. And I think this track as a whole is probably the most Nebraska-like track on the whole album. Maybe with the exception of one other down the line, but I think this one still sounds more like Nebraska than that one does. So, yeah, I'm putting I'm on Fire in the good song bucket. Like, it's a pretty simplistic track. It doesn't really offend or overstay its welcome too much. It does have some nice sonic color to it. And just to be on the safe side while you were talking, I did look up what number single this was released, because like you, I'm a little surprised that this become a hit too. And I was like, this has to be like one of the last ones, right? Like this has to be 6 or 7. No, it was the 4th single released. So Bruce was still hot shit whenever this song dropped, and everyone was like, yeah, more Springsteen. This song. Okay, all right. So yeah, all of that to say, On Fire, solid track. Not great, but not bad either.
Yeah. It's a track that kind of definitely reminds me of like a modern day, well, maybe not modern day, but like generally like what Kings of Leon has done since, like, you know, well, actually probably in the album that we covered, because of the times, like the lonesome kind of feeling that you get within that album there. But, and also like one more addendum there, because I do want to add just a cliff note here before we kick it into the back half of the review. Like I kind of hinted at, like there was a lyric that was lifted by the Gaslight Anthem with I'm on Fire, and for those of you who are kind of curious about that, the lyric is I wake up with the sheets soaking wet, and that's found in High Lonesome. So yeah, but for those of you who are aware of the Gaslight Anthem, they are famously Bruce Springsteen fans, very much so. But before we get into the back half of Born in the U.S.A., we must park our bus right here, right now, because before we take one step further into the review, I have a question for you, Matthew.
And what is that question, good sir?
If the dear listener out there is very much enjoying what we're bringing to the table here tonight on this discussion of Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen, and they want to help show some support so that way we can keep producing these episodes week in and week out, what are some ways that they can help show some support for what we do here on Hey Listen to This? What are other ways that they can connect with us on different platforms? And if they are really feeling like the Son of Man and they want to get that Phil Collins review into the pipeline, what is an avenue that they can do to get such things accomplished?
Well, I will try to go in order as best I can. First, what they could do to help support us here at Hey Listen to This is to continue listening to this. And the way they could do that is by finding us on their favorite podcast platform of choice, because we're pretty much anywhere that podcasts are available. We're on the likes of Pocket Casts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we upload our episodes every week to YouTube as well. So if you like using YouTube for your podcasts, you can use YouTube for our podcast. And if you're on those sites and you like what you hear, do whatever it is that website asks you to do to show that you like us, whether it's liking our video, giving us a 5-star rating, adding us to your subscription feed, or subscribing to our channel. Whatever platform you're using, whatever way you want to show your gratitude, that's how you want to do it. We would very much appreciate that. Now, let's say you're being so appreciative of us that you want to get the word out there, but you're not sure who that out there is or what that out there is, because you're thinking, okay, I think I know somebody who likes Bruce Springsteen, but I also think I know someone who likes Taylor Swift, or I really know this diehard Toledo fan. Well, in any case, fear not, because we are on social media, and that is where you can spread our name out there if you so desire. And we are on the likes of Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. If you're looking for us on there, our username is Hey Listen to This. You could just type that into the search bar, or if you want to go the super route, the true username is TT Hey Listen. Again, that is TT Hey Listen. Put that code in and you'll be able to find us on any and all social media platforms. And speaking of TT Hey Listen, if you want to reach out to us directly, but you do not know us directly, fear not, for there is an email address that you can reach us at, and that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. If you want to leave us some positive feedback, some negative feedback, or some critical feedback, if you will, or if you're feeling spicy and looking to submit a album request, Phil Collins or otherwise, you are free to do that because we've done album requests in the past and we would love to do them again. So again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com if you want to reach out to us. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky if you want to reach us out to a wider audience. And if you just want to keep it between the two of us, you can just continue listening to our episodes on the likes of Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast, because that is where we are. And as always, to those who have done that throughout the almost 3 years that me and Ryan have been doing this podcast, thank you. Again, we are just two dudes who love to talk about music. We're not sponsored by any major podcast network. We're not affiliated with any major financial group or law firm. We're just two dudes. And from one dude to another, Ryan, as always, thank you so much for being a wonderful co-host on this journey. We have once again entered the Springsteen Dome, and so far the results have been a little bit better, but no matter the results and no matter our opinions, it's always a fun time talking music with you, dude.
And the compliments go right back to you, man. It's always a blast doing these reviews, man. It helps me become a better music appreciator, more knowledgeable music fan, and like I could say it, I guess I'm a music critic now alongside with you, man. And and also just the fact that we can share records, share recommendations together. It helps strengthen our friendship, and also just, it makes for a good time, because let's face it, even the state of the world aside, because that is a dark place right now, even if you were to step outside right now, the sun would be trying to fight you. So it's a welcome reprieve to focus on something that I love, you love, and that is music. So yeah, it's been a blast, man. You make an excellent counterpoint to my point at times, and yeah, it's just been a blast. So without any further ado, man, I think it's just very, very much needed that we progress into the back half of this review with the mentality of no retreat, no surrender. And hey, look, the next track is indeed No Surrender. And I think I'm going to take this one to come out of the gate, if you would allow me. So yeah, with No Surrender here, we're opening up side B of Born in the U.S.A. with not a bad song, quite honestly. It feels like, at best, it goes into the good song bucket for me, and it just feels like it just sticks inside that bucket. Like, it doesn't jump out, or doesn't try to make a case for either other bucket. But yeah, the main thing here with No Surrender for me is, once again, the lyrics. They are pretty passionate, and also it's nice to hear again what has inspired the Gaslight Anthem over the years. With the song by the Gaslight Anthem that I'm referencing is Meet Me by the River's Edge, and that's basically because you got the no retreat, no surrender bar in here, and also the next track, Bobby Jean, that's also another Gaslight anthem, lifting of inspiration there. So yeah, it's just fun. I'm glad that we're doing this review, if only for that reason, just to see what the Gaslight anthem has been inspired by over all these years. But yeah, one thing that was a little bit off-putting though with No Surrender for me was the the way that those vocalizations were recorded. It was a little off, just a bit off for me. It was just a bit weird. But on the other side of the vocal front with Bruce as a whole, he sounds fine here. There's nothing too crazy for me to dig into, but he passes the sniff test that I've set up for him with every single track here. The shifting focus over to the band, the backing band's doing a solid job driving the song, everything is just, meshing well while, like, driving the song forward. And shout out to the drummer here. Like, they're doing some solid work throughout this whole song. Like, I think this is, like, the first time I'm specifically shouting out the drummer. But yeah, I was just thinking what they were bringing to the table here. Fun fact, No Surrender almost didn't make the cut. Bruce wanted to leave it off the record, but then Zand begged him to keep it on the record because it perfectly captured the essence of their lifelong friendship and the bond of being in a rock band. So yeah, it's just that's a fun fact there. And lyrical highlight within No Surrender, verse 3, you get the bars. There's a war outside still raging. You say it ain't ours anymore to win. I want to sleep beneath peaceful skies in my lover's bed. So yeah, that, like, within those bars, like, yeah, you have wars that aren't, you might identify as like, hey, that ain't mine to fight, or any, like, you can't win. But Bruce is saying, like, he wants to sleep beneath peaceful skies. He doesn't want to have a war going on outside. So yeah, just a fun fact there. But yeah, stick about what I said about No Surrender. Good song bucket, 100%.
So that makes it 2 songs in a row where I have failed to correctly pinpoint what your least favorite song on this album was going to be. I thought I'm on Fire could get that because it has a lot of similarities to what Downbound Train was. This one I thought also had a chance only because the first note I have about this song, No Surrender, is that unlike I'm on Fire, which sounds like a track off Nebraska, this sounds like a track off of Born to Run. And I say that because it has those very symphonic ground swells, particularly in the oh. I'm very much reminded of a song like Night off Born to Run, where it's just that grandiose sweep of just blasting off into some cosmic suburban atmosphere that Bruce is envisioning. And realistically, the only thing keeping it from sounding exactly like Born to Run is the drums and the keyboards sounding like they are, in fact, from the 1980s when, hey, this album was recorded. And as far as it sort of being left off the album, I can also see that from Bruce because, again, it sounds so different from the rest of the album in its sort of old school approach that Bruce takes to songs. But overall, like, you're pretty much dead on the money as far as performances. The band sounds really good here. Again, you have those ground swells of piano. Max Weinberg does do a great job on drums throughout. I would say Roy Batan, once again, kills it on piano and chords. And it definitely has that pulsating, Spectorian wall of sound style that Bruce perfected with Born to Run, but is sort of rekindling here for some odd reason. Again, I can see why he probably didn't want this fitting in with everything else. But overall, yeah, the lyrics are pretty simple. You pretty much get the main concept of it right in the title. No retreat, baby. No surrender. Let's get out of here into the night and, still be Born to Run after all these years, for lack of better terms. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. No Surrender goes the good song bucket. It's Catch Me on a Good Day, I might elevate to great song bucket, but ultimately, there's nothing wrong about it. It just sounds very, very powerful, but ultimately doesn't do a whole lot aside from be very powerful.
Yeah. I feel like we're into a section of the record where we're getting into like the deeper cuts. Like true fans of the LP are like, hey, yeah, this seems like a 1-2 punch of like No Surrender and Bobby Jean. Also, kind of intrigued to see what your reaction is going to be whenever I eventually reveal what my bottom of the barrel here in terms of Born in the USA, because I thought you would have had me pegged coming right out of the gate with what would have been my least favorite track, but I guess not, man. I guess not. I keep fooling you, man. I'm excited, but. That being said, Matthew, are you ready to finish this metaphorical 1-2 punch off with Bobby Jean?
Yes, Bobby Jean, and it's funny that you've mentioned the Gaslight Anthem so many times already, and for good reason, because as we discussed in our episode about the Gaslight Anthem, particularly their album, The 59 Sound, there was a lot of reference to Springsteen in that review, particularly on Meet Me by the River's Edge, and for good reason. They're from New Jersey. They love Bruce Springsteen. They want to emulate Bruce Springsteen. And they do a pretty solid job of it. So in Meet Me by the River's Edge, at the end of the opening verses, you get just the lead singer going, "No Surrender, My Bobby Jean." It's just like, hey, that's these two songs here, "No Surrender" and "Bobby Jean." That's pretty nifty coinky-dink there. But Bobby Jean, I would say this is the song on here that kind of sounds most like the Gaslight Anthem, honestly. Like, because, again, not only do they reference the song, but the way that Bruce sings here in a very forlorn type of longing for a past sounds very much like something the Gaslight Anthem would record for the 59 Sound. Because, there's this woman, Bobby Jean, that, he thinks she could have been the one, and she wasn't, and what could have been, man. Like, it's a pretty straightforward song in that regard, and this is the second time, at least the second time on this record, where Bruce has flipped one song into another by keeping the same subject matter, but sort of turning it on its head. How Darlington County was flipped into Working on the Highway. Here you get No Surrender flipping into Bobby Jean, where No Surrender is, "Hey, baby, let's go into the night," and turns it into, "Hey, baby, remember when we went into the night, or at least I imagined the possibility of us going into the night? Yeah, what could have been us going into the night." And it's pretty straightforward in that regard. The piano work, once again, I mentioned this at the top. The E Street Band is very much a part of this album, just like Bruce's. And the keyboards on this entire track are fantastic. And it's not similar to Born to Run, but it's very much in that style. I would say almost like a Darkness on the Edge of Town, where you get a very dark but very bright piano sound. I know that sounds completely contradictory to be dark and bright at the same time, but it has a bit of a melancholy twist to its fierce technical prowess, is what I'm trying to say. So Roy Bataan once again gets a shout out here. I'd say Max Weinberg on drums does a really good job too. And the band overall just sounds solid. But that being said, Bobby Jean really didn't do a whole lot for me aside from just being solid. So I'm going to put it in the good song bucket too. Like, it's a very good song. I'm not turning the song off if it comes off the album proper. But is it one I listen to on repeat? Probably not.
So, yeah. While Bobby Jean does sound like on a thematical standpoint, like a standard breakup song, it's widely known to be an emotional goodbye to the longtime E Street Band guitarist Steven Van Zandt, who was leaving the band right as the album was wrapping up. And like, even thematically, having like a 1-2 punch of like No Surrender and Bobby Jean kind of dedicated to Steven here is actually kind of cute. I will give Bruce and the band credit where credit's due. That's a fun aspect. But yeah, speaking about cute, the song here is fine. Like, fine and cute at best. Like, for sure, like, we're getting into like another deep cut off the record, like I already kind of alluded to and you've already kind of talked about. But yeah, we're definitely in the thick of things, especially what's coming up here with the next, like, well, actually I would say like the last couple tracks here off the record, because we got some heavy hitters coming up. But yeah, vocally Bruce sounds pretty solid. He was admittedly a little shaky starting off, but he does stick the landing ultimately on the performance standpoint. And the backing band, they're doing a pretty good job driving the beat here. Like, the sparkly, keyboards are a nice touch. And the rest of the band just grooves alongside the feeling there. Lyrics are pretty solid. Lyrical highlight for me, verse 3. You get the bars. Well, maybe you'll be out there on the road somewhere, in some bus or train traveling along. In some motel room, there'll be a radio playing, and you'll hear me singing this song. Like, that kind of, storytelling right there is actually kind of cool. And if you think about it on a long thematical standpoint, like, oh, this was a lover that Bruce had, and he's gonna be playing a song on the radio for her someday. So yeah, that was fun. But like you, I'm putting this into the fuck it, man. I'm putting it into the cute song bucket.
I like that. I like that being the cute song bucket. And thank you for bringing up the fact that this is again a bit of a 1-2 punch to the tribute of Steven Van Zandt, because I had not realized that. This actually makes a lot more sense now. So in a sense, the "Hey baby, no retreat, no surrender," and the "Hey baby, what we could have been" is not a baby at all, but rather a grown-ass man by the name of Steven Van Zandt. So, very fitting, I would say, and a very interesting and auspicious start to side B of the record. But yeah, I think we both agree that this song is solid. It's cute. It definitely has that 60s Spectorian vibe that Bruce likes to go with. But we have concluded the album track portion of this album, because every single song from here on out, the final 4, were all released as singles, and they all hit the top 10. So we, like you said, Ryan, we do got some heavy hitters coming up. And the first of those heavy hitters is "I'm Going Down," and the floor is yours.
All right, so the dear listener out there, you might have noticed that I haven't identified my least favorite track off the record here so far. Go ahead and lock in your answers right now before we get into this kind of a little bit of a leg of an album here, because which one is it going to be? I don't know. And also, I've yet to identify my favorite and my third favorite track off the album. So I'm going to be doing some fun work here, and as is Matthew here. But yeah, starting with "I'm Going Down." I never knew that Bruce did this song. I hate to say this, it just somehow escaped my consciousness. I've heard the song plenty enough times, either on the radio or at a store radio, whether it be on Home Depot radio whenever I was working there a couple of years back, or just in general, maybe at a CVS or Rite Aid. But yeah, overall though, pretty decent song. The songwriting starts off strong, but honestly, towards the back half, it gets a bit repetitive, especially with him just going ad nauseum. "I'm going down, 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 down," and then he starts scatting. What the fuck is that, man? It's a bit campy. Not bad by any means, but it's just Bruce Springsteen scatting. Who would have thought, man? But yeah, the chorus itself with "I'm Going Down" is the main thing that the song has going for it, which is an interesting statement for me to make, because I just critiqued the song for basically almost writing the chorus home until the cows come home. But it is what it is. The repetition of the phrase "I'm going down, down, down," it lands well in the ear. It just creates for a nice strong melody and a nice strong sensation. The synth player with that "I'm Going Down" is doing some fun parts, and the drums are produced pretty heavy, but not as comically overproduced as in Born in the U.S.A. So Bruce overall sounds solid. No pitch issues here that I was able to find. But he really isn't given a raw performance. He's not really digging in in Born in the USA. But yeah, he's doing a solid job. Sax solo was brief but effective, and the ending part, like I said, with Bruce scatting was a bit camp, and the choice to have bare drums and bass with the hand claps and the last chorus was interesting, but very much needed, because again, you're repeating that chorus until the cows come home. You have to do something to kind of change it up here. The lyrics, pretty solid. Lyrical highlight, verse 3. Side note, First three seems to be where Bruce is in his like sweet spot in the album for me because I think there's been multiple lyrical highlights off the record here so far that I'm like verse three, verse three, verse three. But I digress. The lyric reads, "I used to drive you to work in the morning Friday night. I drive you all around. You used to love to drive me wild. Yeah, but lately, girl, you get your kicks from just driving me." And the repetition of the word drive there in many incarnations or just verbs in general really drove me to that verse there. It was just fun. So, yeah, I'm going down. Doesn't land in any spot for me. Like, if anything, honestly, maybe cut track territory, but it's not one of my favorite tracks, and it's not the stinker, man.
Not the stinker. Interesting. All right, I'll have to keep that in mind for future reference. So for me, I'm going down. A lot of things you said I agree with. This definitely goes back to the '80s Heartland vibes that we got on the likes of Cover Me, Darlington County, where it's very much just a groovy kind of track that relies heavily on the instrumental. And the band, once again, is kicking some serious ass. You mentioned the hand claps and the bass and the drums on that last part of the chorus. I agree, like, that was the part where I realized that the hand claps and the drums throughout the entire track are doing the Lord's work of just keeping this thing just steady and groovy and consistent throughout. Because, yes, the hook does get very, very repetitive towards the end. It's like, we get it, Bruce, you're going down. You're going down. You're sinking. You're sinking. You haven't sunk yet, but you're sinking. You know, this is the end of the Titanic where you're holding onto that board, and you don't realize there's room for you on there along with Rose. Anyways, the point being, Bruce does get a little repetitive on the track, and honestly, the hook itself is pretty solid, so be it. It's a solid hook. It works. It works ultimately. I agree with the sax solo from Clarence Clemens does rip pretty solidly. And again, this feels very much in the same vein of like Cover Me or I'm on Fire, where Bruce is kind of leaning towards the romantic / sexual direction, but he's kind of being vague about it. Like, he's not really putting out any type of clearance as to what he means by his come-ons, but in a sense, the other side of it is that, you know, he's either going down to defeat or he's going down personally, and that may not be sexual or romantic at all. Again, the lyrics are kind of vague, but ultimately this feels more like a Jamie track than anything else, and it's solid for what it is. So, much like you, I'm putting it in that middle territory where I'm going to put it in the good song bucket because it sounds very good. I think it deserves to be a hit, but it is not in my top 3. And I have a strong feeling that in some way those old familiar bells are going to be ringing in a short bit here. I don't know how. All I will say is that I do have yet to reveal my second and third favorite track on the album, and I will come out clean and say it now. Whatever's left is a cut track. So it's going to get interesting real fast.
Yeah. As it always does here on Hey, Listen to This, especially when we're talking about the boss man himself, Bruce Springsteen, man. But without any further ado, man, you ready to start off the succession here of what could be a Fight O'Clock City here with the next track, Glory Days?
Yes, Glory Days indeed. And this is one of the bigger of the big ones. This song very much has been a staple of classic hits and classic rock radio for years now. And I could see why. You get that opening guitar from either Bruce or Van Zandt, which sounds really solid. And then you get that big-ass carnival keyboard riff from Roy Bittan, which I would throw in the category of iconic. This is, again, that same type of Jersey boardwalk summer day vibe that you're getting from his keyboard. It sounds really, really nice. And Bruce is singing a lot clearer than he ever has before. I would say this is probably right up there with Cover Me and Born in the USA is his clearest vocal tracks on the album, at least so far, because he just sounds really, really strong here. And he does so in a way that's very wink and very nod, because lyrically, this track is either a very fun sing-along song or the most terrifying set of lyrics in human history. And it very much depends on your aspirations in your own personal life, dear listener. The reason being is that this song is very much about a guy going to a bar, running to his old buddies, reminiscing about the good times, and then, hey, he goes back to that bar, has a couple drinks, finds this old girl he used to have a crush on. Now she's with somebody else, but not with somebody else because, spoiler alert, they divorced. And they're just sitting around reminiscing about the good times. Bruce talks about how this baseball player used to throw a real mean fastball and how this woman used to turn all the boys' heads. But now we're older now, and time's gone by, and yep, time's gone by, and I guess all we can do now is sit here and reminisce about glory days. So, if you're in the category of realizing your glory days have slipped by you, this song very much is a nice little, hey, raise your glass to Tales of the Past type of song. If you have any ambitions of becoming more in your life, you probably hear this song and run for the frickin' hills. Because, oh my, I cannot turn into one of those small towners who just sits around reminiscing about days gone by. I can't let that happen to me. And the fact that it's so explicit in that regard is just a huge staple of this track being as effective as it is, because Bruce is, again, painting it out there in what I would call ironic positivity, where he's basically just singing "Oh well" to the past and such is life in a way that feels dark but are so exuberant. And the reason it sounds so exuberant is because he's singing exuberantly, the band is playing exuberantly, and everything just sounds like a big old party, a big old toast. It's basically a song that walked so that a song like Garth Brooks' Friends in Low Places could run. It's very much a, hey, I could have been, but this is what I am, and if you can't accept me for who I am, so be it, because this is who I am, and I'm not going to shy away from it anymore. So yeah, between Bruce's explicit nature of the lyrics, his strong vocal performance, and the band just, again, kicking ass up and down this track for 4 or so minutes, especially the keyboard, especially the guitars, it just sounds really great. And then you get the outro where Bruce, and I believe that's Van Zandt because they may have recorded this before he left, but whoever Bruce is trading off with, they're just sounding like a couple guys up at the stage at the bar just trading off. Some may remember the Super Bowl performance where this came off a little bit too obviously an old guy-like, but that's kind of what the joy of this song is ultimately. So perhaps despite myself, I cannot resist the power of this song being what it is. I do have it in my top 3, and I have it at number 3.
Yeah, with Glory Days here, this song's pretty legit. Like, you get a very, starting off your dissection about the track here, you talked about the lyrics. How either it's a, good reminiscing of, like, of like olden days, or it's a nightmare fuel for, like, hey, I don't want to be like that person who gets stuck in a small town and just reminisces on those good old days. I feel like one of the biggest things that this song has going for it are the lyrics. Like, I very much enjoyed how each verse is focused on one person, and like the concept of nostalgic longing, whether it's the baseball player that you illustrated, that woman that you also talked about, and even in verse 3 where Bruce turns the camera at him and being like, hey, I think I'm going down to the well tonight. I think I'm going to drink until I get my fill, and I hope when I get old I don't sit around thinking about it, but I probably will. And then, like, he goes into Glory Days. So, yeah, I loved all of that. So, yeah, just fun stuff there. The chorus is pretty fucking fantastic. It's so simple, but so effective, and you will remember it until the cows come home. Synthlick is iconic, and you know what this song is by that lick alone. It's one of those melodic licks in general in the rock history that you can identify from a mile away. And drums are pretty good as well. Kind of overproduced again, but not like in the USA where I'm like it's just so loudly produced that you can hear it from like the next zip code. But Bruce sounds really solid here. Vocally, I very much enjoyed what he had to bring to the table. The lyrical highlight that I had with Glory Days was once again in verse 3 where I already talked about where he turns the camera inward, but yeah, just the overall song in general is just such a good time, and it basically kind of just starts out with like a party kind of feel, and it kind of ends in that as well. So I could not deny this song. I could not deny it with all good consciousness. So yeah, Glory Days is my favorite track off the record.
You know what? I was kind of wondering about this one because I'm glad you like this song as much as I do. Obviously not quite as much because I have it at 3, you have it at 1. But I almost was kind of wondering if the outro was going to be a sinking point for you because you mentioned on Born in the USA how that overstayed its welcome. And this, you could argue, does overstay its welcome a little bit too, but I wouldn't argue that. It's a really fun ending of just trade-offs and good vibes throughout. And that's what the song is. Good vibes to celebrate itself or perhaps spite itself. Either way, it just sounds like a wonderful performance through and through. So, Glory Days, definitely a highlight off the album. And yet another track that we both have in the top 3, which is pretty interesting in of itself. Will this next track follow in that footstep? We have come to the penultimate track off the album. The biggest hits, ironically enough. This went all the way to number 2 on the Hot 100. It was the initial single release from this album. Probably the biggest one. Dancing in the Dark. Ryan, the penultimate floor belongs to you.
So, very last song written for the album, Dancing in the Dark. The reason why it was written, Springsteen's manager, John LeDoux, told him that the record needed a guaranteed hit single. Well, little did he know that this song had a lot. Having already written like 70 songs, like holy Jesus Christ in a Trisket, man. Bruce was furious. He was just like, what the fuck? I wrote like 70 songs. And one of them being Born in the USA. So like, yeah, kind of funny that like what John LeDoux's mentality was. So Bruce, he went back to his hotel room, pissed off, and he wrote Dancing in the Dark overnight. So, and if you listen to the lyrics, dude, like, quoting this lyric here, man, I'm just tired and bored with myself. He's literally complaining about how hard it is to write this song. So, I love that 100%, and I just think that's a very, very necessary context when we're talking about Dancing in the Dark. But, yeah, song's pretty good. Like, it kind of reminds me of, like, it feels like a sister song to, like, I'm on Fire, where I'm on Fire was just, like, the, kind of a tame thing. And this is either progressing the story, or this is, like, the more rambunctious sister in the family here. But, yeah, the lyric writing with the Dancing in the Dark, I already talked about, but it's pretty great. Like, several bars about wanting to get a spark to kickstart a life. And I just loved, not in verse 3 this time, but in verse 2, my lyrical highlight was, I check my look in the mirror, I want to change my clothes, my hair, my face. Man, I ain't getting nowhere. Just living in a dump like this. Like, we've all maybe had that frustration at one point in our lives where we just try to change something up, maybe just to get a spark to feel something in life. But yeah, just I very much love the accessibility about those lyrics, man. And also, again, we have another synth-lick here in the album where the synth-lick is just pretty great. And it's so great to the point that I almost think that I thought that either Bruce lifted or like the band lifted that lick from somewhere, or it's been copied elsewhere. No, it really hasn't. So, at least to my knowledge. So yeah, just shout out to that lick there. Chorus is pretty solid. I kind of maybe wanted a little bit more from it, to be honest with you. The sax solo at the end is okay. It's just basically there though, and Bruce vocally is pretty much okay. He does sound a little flat in spots, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, only other thing I got to say about Dancing in the Dark is we've finished my top 3 within Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen, with Dancing in the Dark being my 3rd favorite track off the record.
So that story about this being written overnight doesn't surprise me really a whole lot, because there is I wholeheartedly agree with you that the comparisons to I'm on Fire are very much deserved, because this feels very much like a late night, I can't sleep type of lyric writing, and it does feel like a much more punchier version of that song. And what a punch, because Roy Bittan and Max Weinberg are absolutely burning through that riff and just tattooing it to your car speakers, tattooing it to your earphones, just creating, like you said, such an iconic, powerful riff that deserves its top 5, top 2 chart status. But much like I'm on Fire, Bruce is once again in lethargia mode, where he's just tired, exhausted, and he either wants to go to sleep or get laid, and damn it, he's going to get one way or the other. And I would say his singing here is a lot clearer than it is on I'm on Fire. And maybe it's just because the key's a little higher or the backing band's a lot stronger. I thought the lyrics were solid too, occasionally a little haphazard, but for writing it in the middle of the night, pissed off, I'll give him a pass on that. The chorus does seem a little bit full of cliches, like, can't start a fire without a spark, this gun's for a hire, even if we're just dancing in the dark. But again, that melody that's created dwarfs any errors of lyrics that this song has. Like, it's just a powerful titan. And it almost feels like Bruce is trying to rhyme his words more than tell a story above all else. Which, again, late night, just trying to get shit down. Sure, that's completely fair. I like the sax solo from Clarence Clemens at the end. It's a nice smooth counter to the punching beat. And yeah, this song does rock quite a bit. Catch Me on a Different Day, it's probably a strong contender for the top 3. But as it is, Dancing in the Dark is a cut track for me, and lands probably solidly on a 4th spot for me, top to bottom. So, for those of you keeping score on this episode, you may realize that Ryan has yet to reveal his least favorite track. I have yet to reveal my 2nd favorite track, and we have 1 song to go. So, let the bells of 5 o'clock chime throughout the land, because this is going to get interesting with the finale here. So I'm just going to go ahead and go right into it. My hometown is the finale off Born in the USA, and we have stripped the instrumentation down to a little more than synth, bass drum, and tambourine here, and it creates a very mellow, very ominous sound. And as we've talked about before on the show, if you're going to strip everything back to the bones, your vocals better come through and deliver. And in my opinion, Bruce does. He delivers a very passionate vocal here, and it's clear, it's wonderful. It does get a little slurry at times, but I think that's just in earnestness. And even for as Springsteen-y as he sounds sometimes, if you're just listening to the tune, like, he is telling a story. He is weaving a tale of growing up in a hometown, being a little boy, chasing down a man for paper, bringing it to his dad, growing up realizing that times weren't as innocent as they once were, growing up some more and realizing that times were even less innocent because now the economy's changing and things are going away. My lyrical highlight off of this song comes in the bridge where Bruce says, they're closing down the textile mills across the railroad track. The foreman says these jobs are going, boys, and they ain't coming back to your hometown. Like, this is him basically showcasing that in the economics of Reagan and Nixon, the prosperity of the steel mill era is gone. And the prosperity of earning a factory wage to make a good living is gone. And the lyrics are so powerful here, and they're so well done, that it creates this very smooth but very bitter finish, like sipping on a nice whiskey almost, to hearing this album. And the last verse itself balances the need to escape with the influence over the next generation, because he's debating, hey, do I want to see what happens and raise my son to be a better person in this town than anybody in this town could ever be, or do I just want to give up and start anew somewhere else? Do I want to head down south? And to me, this is one of his most empathetic, best written songs that he's ever done. And it is truly a song that represents American values more so than a jingoistic Lee Greenwood, Kate Smith type of sound. So, yeah. My Hometown is a great song through and through. I have it as my second favorite track on the whole album. And I have a sinking suspicion I know what Ryan's about to say.
I mean, that puts a lot of pressure on me, man. Like, I was about to say something completely random, like life insurance, but I digress, though. So I'm going to start with positives here, because you highlighted a lot of good facts about the song here, and I agree with you that this song has a lot going for it. Lyric writing is top-notch. Instrumentation matches the feel. Great songwriting. And the fact that you get that progression of when he's a little boy, when he's a teenager, when the jobs go away, and then when he becomes a man and everything becomes full circle. Like, really, really good. It's pretty incredible how he's able to weave this story all together. And also, one other thing I want to highlight before I get into my main critique about the song, which Matt could probably call from a mile away, and he might be locking in his bet on Polly Market right now. But the one minor detail that I did appreciate is when the synths mirror Bruce's voice in certain spots. So yeah, I'm always a fan of that. However, Hello Darkness, once again, we have come into a song where Bruce's voice is just completely unbearable. Like, it's just very shaky, and it's very pitchy, and I can't listen to the song because of the voice. Like, it's a drag every single time. And as tempting as it is to crash out about Bruce Springsteen's voice at the end of the review here, I'm going to measure some restraint, because, yeah, it's just, this vocal performance is easily the worst on the whole album for me. I get what he was going for, but it just sounds bad. It's not entertaining for my ears. So, yeah, least favorite track off the record, man. So, ending off the record with a little bit of a dud for me.
I do not agree with what you just said, but I kind of understand where you're coming from, because, again, I would say Downbound Train is considerably worse vocal than this one. I like the vocal on this one because I think he's, again, going for earnestness and authenticity more so than anything else. But it does get a little Springsteen-y. It definitely does go into the he's trying to sing type of mode, which I know you were not a fan of Born to Run, and having heard this album a little bit too, I still love Born to Run, but I can definitely tell that Bruce is sounding a bit more natural throughout this whole album compared to that one. There he was trying to sing. Here he's just sort of relying on his own inner being and realizing he's going to sound how he's going to sound. But yeah, there are some times he does slur here, but again, I'm willing to pass that off as earnestness, and I think sort of the inverse of Dancing in the Dark, where the melody is so strong that it dwarfs the lyrics. Here, I think the lyrics are so strong that it dwarfs any type of musical error that he might have. So, yeah, I really dig this track, but I can understand where you're coming from with this one, because Bruce's vocals, as we've learned in the past, not for everybody, not all the time.
Yeah. I will give him credit, though. Like, for the majority of the album, though, like, he's definitely on his vocal game. Like, yeah, there were some missteps here or there, but yeah, overall, though, vocally, much more pleasant experience for me than Born to Run. With that being said, though, like, the dear listener might have noticed that coming into this review, we've had 12 tracks up, 12 tracks have been smacked down, scorecards have been filled out, so there's only one thing left to say, man.
Happy birthday, America! Wait, wrong script. Hold on, let me find the other one here. Sift through the papers here. Oh, yeah. Let me try that again. We did it.
We did it, man. Very much like Bruce Springsteen, we experienced what it feels like to be born in the USA. So, yeah, I'm going to go first with my overall thoughts and rating here about the record. Pretty good record for me. Like, definitely it's going to be an interesting thing for me to realize, because I think looking back on my score to Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, I think I'm about to maybe mirror that score, ironically enough. But, like, I kind of already highlighted, though. Well, I'll just, get into my overall thoughts. Bruce sounds better vocally throughout the record. Yeah, I had my qualms about My Hometown and Downbound Train. Like, yeah, you're going to have spots here or there, especially with how Bruce's voice does come across. But you also get plenty enough moments like Born in the USA, Glory Days, and like just the melodic, like, stuff that you can find in like deep cuts like Darlington County, and like the songwriting as a whole. Like, everything is pretty good. A lot of the songs are really driving home that Heartland Americana feel, and it lands. It's a pretty good experience for me overall. I will say, though, one of the biggest things that kind of holds this album back from really just blowing my socks off is a lot of the songs, like the big songs like Glory Days, Born in the USA, Dancing in the Dark, they feel like, this could be a weird thing for me to say, but they feel like they're kind of coming from the same kind of angle, and they're really just trying to say the same thing, but in different kind of ways. And also, songs are kind of like overplayed, especially like Glory Days, even though it was my favorite track off the album. But yeah, that being said, though, my overall rating with Born in the USA, it's a good album. Not a great album, not an amazing album, not a perfect album, but it's a good album. It's a 7 out of 10 album.
So, for me, as I mentioned during our discussion of Vibe on Fire, this is not the first time I reviewed this album. I reviewed it years ago on vinyl, and I kind of came to a conclusion I'm going to come to now, is that, yes, there are moments on this record where I probably want more, like Downbound Train. I may even throw in the likes of Bobby Jean in there too a little bit. Songs that are solid but not really standoutish. But the whole of this album is greater than the sum of its parts. Because from start to finish, you get, like you said, Ryan, a veritable slice of the American heartland, for better or worse, whether it's the joyousness of Darlington County and Glory Days, to the darkness of Downbound Train, to the defeat of My Hometown, to the anger of Born in the USA, and all the human emotions that come in between with love and lust, like I'm going down, I'm on fire, and cover me. To me, that explains a human experience and a realization of humanity that so few have tried to been able to put together on record. That's one side of it. Another side of it is that Bruce does sound a lot better than he did on Born to Run. His writing is stronger, his vocals are stronger, his passion is stronger and he's not trying to force it as much, if at all. But what really puts this album into the category of one of the greatest albums of all time is from front to back. The E Street Band doesn't miss a note. Max Weinberg sounds amazing on drums. Roy Bittan delivers some of the best keyboard work on an album possibly ever. And I didn't really appreciate that until listening to this album through and through. Like, the synths and the keyboards here are just A+ throughout. The bass sounds great. Clarence Clemens sounds great. The guitars of Steven Van Zandt and Bruce Springsteen himself sound great. And if this were an instrumental album on its own, like, this could probably get, like, at least, like, a 7.5, 8 out of 10 just instrumentally. But when you add the empathy, when you add the experience, when you add the lyrics, and you add the passion that Bruce Springsteen delivers in this album, it, to me, for whatever faults it may have, is an all-time no-doubter. So this may not surprise any of you, but my score from 11 plus years ago has not changed. This album's getting a 10 out of 10 for me. It is a classic through and through.
Yeah, kind of. Whenever you started going on, I kind of was starting to pen it in my head. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a 10. But your 10 in my 7, I feel like we've been here before. Average out to be an 8.5 out of 10 because
Math
works for everyone. It does not change over years, apparently. So, oh man, I can't believe we're here once again with Bruce. But I digress. So, going into next album recommendations, though. It could have been easy for me to be like, recommend like a Gaslight Anthem record, but I kind of decided to take a different avenue because this is an Americana kind of record, and I was just like, what's another classic rock artist that basically kind of has that Americana kind of feel? And I looked at a man named Tom, and he's not so petty, but he is Tom Petty. And I'm going to officially recommend his album Full Moon Fever. A lot of the big songs off the record, Free Falling, I Won't Back Down. But yeah, just a classic Americana record, so it might make for a great double feature in terms of celebrating America's birthday by doing Bruce's Born in the USA, then following it up with Full Moon Fever. So yeah, that's my next album recommendation.
That would be a hell of a double feature. I feel like anyone who listens to that is basically required to build a deck and grill a hot dog just on sheer sonic power. By the way, before I give my full official recommendation, it is the same difference between us as far as our ratings. It is a 3-point difference, much like Born to Run was. However, I gave that a 9, you gave that a 6. So we just bumped it up 1 dot higher for Born in the USA, which I can understand. I am fine with that. But my next album recommendation based off Born in the USA, I too was considering the Gaslight Anthem and the 59 Sound, but I'm going to keep it pretty simple. Go back one space and go listen to Nebraska, because what you get with Nebraska is very much the elements and the seedlings to which Born in the USA sprouted into the mainstream. You get songs like the title track that talk about the murder of Charlie Starkweather, songs like Atlantic City, which are very down and out, and the whole sonic palette of the album is very much tipping in the direction of Bruce's Heartland vibes. So, yeah, Nebraska would be my next choice based off of Born in the USA.
So, dear listener out there, to summarize, our average rating for Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen was an 8.5 out of 10. I recommended Full Moon Fever by Tom Petty. Matthew recommends Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen. So, actually, just make a trilogy out of it, man. Make a Sunday out of it. After you celebrate the America's birthday here today, check out, dive into those records the day after. Make it a trilogy, man. That's the American trilogy. Nebraska, Born in the USA, and then Full Moon Fever. So, yeah, man. We did it, man.
We did indeed do it, man. And Again, I came into this review curious as to which way it could have gone, and it kind of went the way I expected it to, where I was very high on the album. You were higher than you were in the past. But overall, our opinions of Bruce Springsteen, I think, have been, if not heightened, at the very least expanded with this review. So, that being said, before we launch the fireworks into the next review and the beginning of the 250th year of American independence, or just its 250th birthday, independence results may vary. Ryan, it is your turn to select what we are talking about next here on the show. What do you got cooked up for us?
So, Matthew, I went to go see a movie recently, and that movie was Supergirl. I know that has been an incredibly divisive movie within the internet landscape, but I found it to be pretty good. And there was a lot of fun needle drops within that movie. So I figured I'm going to pick two bands that were featured in the movie and have you choose by the means of disguising the choices by having you choose between two horror movies that are like the song titles are horror movies that can be found within these specific albums that we are going to be covering. We can cover next week on Hey Listen to This. Are you ready, Matthew?
I am ready.
All right. So the first movie that that is up for a choice would be Jennifer's Body, and the second choice is Smile.
Whew. Okay, that's definitely not where I was expecting that to go. I have not seen either movie, so I'm going into this somewhat blind. But, that's tough. I'm gonna go with Jennifer's Body.
So on next week's episode of Hey Listen to This, me and Matthew are going to try to see if we can catch these fists. And so that we are going to be talking about the 2025 release by the band Wet Leg, and that album is called Moisturizer.
Well then, all right. Not gonna lie, I thought we were gonna be with Jennifer's Body. I thought we were going back to like the early 2010s. But you know what? I'm up for talking about some new music and talking about some Wet Leg, the band.
Yeah, man. I'm excited, man. It's been a record that I listened to like once or even twice, and yeah, I'm just excited about. I'm excited to talk about it on next week's episode. So yeah, dear listener out there, if you've never listened to Moisturizer by Wet Leg, or if it's been a while since you've listened to it, and by a while, it's been out for like a year. So I don't know how long you want to define a while, but yeah, either way, make sure you check out that album before next week's review. That way you can have opinions about the record, and therefore have opinions about the opinions that me and Matt are going to be bringing to the table. So yeah, man. Any closing thoughts here with Bruce Springsteen and Born in the USA, and then pivoting over to some Wet Leg here?
What a sentence. Not much, man. Just that, again, if you're going out there this weekend and you're having your doubts about celebrating the country as it is because of all the things that are going on and the massiveness of everything that's happening in our country these days, just strip it back. Don't focus so much on the big picture. Just take a look around at your hometown.